Well, Michael Taylor is here to tell you about a new book. He's called it Northern Monkeys, and it documents the history of a working class fashion in the North. Hello, Michael.
Hello.
Why write and put together and call a book Northern Monkeys?
Well, it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, because that's a term of, not a term of endearment used by people from the South about people from the North. And there have been lots of films made, mainly by Londoners, about the whole casual terrace fashion phenomena that really boomed in the 80s. And there's been to and fro in about where it started. Was it in the suburbs of London from Soul Boys down there, or did it actually generate from Liverpool supporters who were travelling to Europe, collecting rare Adidas trainers and Sergio Tacchini and Lacoste tennis tops, and started wearing that kind of fashion to matches. So there's been a big debate between to and fro. So
Where do you stand on that debate?
I know, of course, it started in the North.
Absolutely.
No question. Yeah, and Manchester had a particular take on it, and a lot of these films have really fixated on Adidas trainers, quite rightly.
Yeah.
They really did boom. They've also fixated on very much the sports fashion element of it. But what I wanted to tell was the story that led up to it, that actually it was a continuation of trends, of men taking great pride in their appearance, of wanting to find new labels.
So where does the book start? How far back do you go?
Post-Second World War.
Oh, really?
Yeah, from soldiers who were demobbed. We've got interviews with guys who are in the 70s now, all the way through the book. There's about 40 different people who have either been interviewed or contributed their own tales. And it just takes in loads of different scenes that I just think that are rooted in the North, and they've never had the due acknowledgement. Some of them are starting to get more acknowledgement. What was the particular Northern take on mods, for instance? That's in there. The Northern Soul scene. A lot of us know about.
So a lot of it was influenced by music, really. The dress, the fashion.
Of course it is, because music is a bringing together of people in collective ways, and you want to look good amongst when you're around other people. You know, going for a night out, going to the cinema when you're going to rip up some seats when you're a teddy boy. Everyone wants to look in a certain way and look
good. It's a sense of belonging. You weren't in the group if you didn't have the right trainers.
That's right.
You were an outcast at school.
that came into the 80s, but you know, football was the big catalyst for this. But what this book's trying to do is say that it actually comes from a fine tradition of wanting to look the best, of taking on board the best clothes, the best looks, and being distinctive, and being really proud of being Northern as well.
So do you think that they're kind of misunderstood? Because you said, talking about going back to wartime era, if you look at black and white photos of that era, everyone made such an effort with their appearance.
Yeah.
Men had smart trousers and had the shirt tucked in and perhaps the braces and the hats. And it's kind of assumed that by wearing the tracky bottoms that you're a scruff bag and you can't be bothered, but actually people put just as much effort into getting that kind of dress right.
I certainly did in 1984 with my Sergio Tacchini tracksuit bottoms on the terraces of Ewood Park. But there's a great picture in the book, obviously this is radio so I can't show it you, of one of the contributors' fathers, who was one of the Cunard boys. So he worked on the ships from Liverpool docks. And he travelled all around the world on the ships, and he went to New York and he'd buy rare Baswegian loafers, a particular cut of Levi jeans, and there's a picture of him with his mates, and it looks like it could have been taken in Manchester's Northern Quarter about a week ago.
So he was that forward thinking back then?
Yeah, possibly, but maybe it's because there's a retro look that's really taken hold now. And then his son, Dave Hewitson, who's behind a brand called 80s Casuals, you know, that's his dad who did that, travelling to America to pick up things and better himself and look good. Dave's contributed about how he went to continental Europe following Liverpool in the 80s, and of course United fans were doing that as well.
So they were travelling abroad to watch their team, picking up the local dress, the things that were in, bringing them back, and then people saw them wearing it and wanted a bit of that.
That's right. And then I've done an interview with a guy called Robert Wade Smith that started a chain store. It's not in business anymore, called Wade Smith, and he built a business. He became a millionaire off the back of this, and so too have brands like the Manchester-based JD Sports. I've done a piece with the chief exec, Barry Bown. He's got one of the most fantastic collections of trainers you'll ever see. Now, admittedly, he's got access to stock like nobody else. And it's just tales like that. Now, they're quite high-profile business people, and I know loads of people like that. But the real stories, the real gems in this book are from people, just normal working class people with their own experiences and their own lives, and also the dark side of being really narcissistic and wanting to collect clothes and look good, and how that's often then gets tainted by addiction. So there's people who've really opened up their souls and talked about addictions and things like that as well.
Okay, we're just going to get some travel, and we'll come back to you and talking to Michael Taylor, one of the contributors to a new book, Northern Monkeys, documenting the history of working class fashion in the North. BBC Radio Manchester.
BBC Radio Manchester. Travel update.
How are the roads looking this afternoon, Marie?
A lot better now on the M6. Traffic's, I wouldn't say moving freely, but just about 10-minute delays northbound on the M6. 18 Holmes Chapel to 19 Knutsford. All lanes are open. There was a serious accident that closed the motorway at junction 19. We've got at least 15-minute delays from Stockport down to Disley on the A6. Really slow traffic. As you leave the M6 at junction 6 for the Oral interchange on towards Wigan, the A577 is queuing right the way into Wigan. 10-minute delays there, and that's because of those roadworks. And roadworks on the Wilmslow side of the airport tunnels, the A538, causing 15-minute delays from Wilmslow town centre towards the M56 at junction 6. This one's further afield, but if you're travelling on the, or hoping to, on the M65 towards Lancashire, I'm afraid the motorway is completely closed at junction 5 Guide, an overturned trailer and a shed load. And don't forget the 40-minute delays on Virgin trains to and from London Euston because of an electrical supply problem. Any updates for me? It's 01619293649.
Across Greater Manchester, a new sort of organisation seems to be bucking the recession. Food banks provide free food to those who'd otherwise go hungry, and they're opening up all over the place.
There is a dire need in Rochdale, as there is in many towns. And it's not just the apparently poor towns, it's the rich areas as well. There are always people in need.
All this week on Alan Beswick at Breakfast, I'm finding out how food banks work, who uses them, and why one is likely to be opening near to you very soon. Alan Beswick, weekday mornings from 6 on BBC Radio Manchester.
It's Amy in for Becky and Justin this afternoon on BBC Radio Manchester, speaking to Michael Taylor, one of the contributors to a book called Northern Monkeys, documenting fashion in the North. How come this hasn't been done before? Why is it that it is such a huge thing in Manchester and Liverpool? We always talk about the music, but the fashion sort of gets overlooked.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. I think it is a great story to be told. There has been a lot of focus on the hooligan side of it, and I wanted the book to kind of reclaim the look and feel as much as the dark side.
So you think when people dress in a certain way, Southerners perhaps, or people who aren't from this particular area, call you a hooligan? What sort of clothing are we talking about when we say that?
Well, the uniform that we've used on the book in the 70s, it was Doc Martin boots, half-mast jeans, and a green MA1 tight-fitting bomber jacket with a scarf around the wrist. In the 80s, a Sergio Tacchini or a Fila tracksuit top with, again, tight-fitting jeans and a pair of rare Diadora or Adidas trainers.
I remember my brother wearing that in the 80s. I don't think he was a hooligan.
Absolutely, and this is the point. Loads of people I know weren't hooligans.
It was just the in thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm soft as anything. I've never hit anyone in my life.
And then we come to the good old Parker jacket.
In the 90s, yeah. I mean, the most iconic item of all, I mean, these things cost about £800, is a CP company Melia jacket, designed by an Italian designer called Massimo Osti. That's a really iconic collectible item. There's also key brands that I've even seen advertised in Manchester Northern Quarter recently, like Stone Island.
Well, you've got, when I look at this, I think immediately of the Gallagher brothers, and one of them's got his own clothing line now, so it obviously is something that people still want to wear even now.
Yeah, very much so.
What picks us out? What divides us then from the South of having such a better fashion sense in the North?
That is attitude.
So the attitude goes with the dress.
It goes with the dress, but it goes.
You have to have the swagger when you wear the Parker jacket.
Yeah, but not the Liam Gallagher and monkey swagger. I'd like to totally distance this book from all that sort of nonsense. But you see, at the moment, there's a Manchester store called Oi Polloi that's really iconic, and their look of 2 years ago that was in their window, which some people would liken to the lumberjack look, and certain types of jeans, the revival of Clark's shoes as well, particularly the suede wallabies. That look has now been appropriated, and these fashion trends get appropriated so quickly by mainstream brands. You walk past H&M, Primark, they've all got that look. What a lot of people who still really hold the flame of, I suppose, casual dress or whatever you want to call it, they want to try and move it on constantly.
Well, that's it, because they don't want everybody to be wearing the same thing, so it has to sort of evolve, doesn't it? The underground look.
Yeah, that's right.
That you associate with these certain groups.
Yeah, but then there's a pervasive look. Look at JD Sports and how big that is, and everybody, you just see all sorts of different.
When you were
nice trainers.
sort of researching the book, did Did anything surprise you that came out of it?
Yeah, constantly. Yeah, there's loads of different surprises. There's this brilliant story from this guy who was a skinhead in Preston in the 60s who got his Italian suits handmade by this tailor. And he went to him and said, yeah, my suit's brilliant, but could you do something about the leg? It's too short. I want them halfway up my shin so I can show off my new shiny hobnail boots.
Perhaps not something you would expect from a skinhead from the 60s either.
And the tailor was crying, you know. Some of the stories about Northern Soul, what a fantastic scene that was. Scooter, we've got loads of interviews and pieces by Scooter Boys. People who customised their own Lambrettas and Vespers in the 60s and 70s people know about from the film Quadrophenia, but that's a scene that still lives really strong to this day.
So who's going to enjoy this book? Who will want this?
I think anybody that's ever had their lives touched by dressing as a mod, or even a rocker, casual in the 80s and 90s, absolutely anybody that cares about how they look and is proud about being from the north.
Okay, well, thanks so much for coming in to talk about it. It's Northern Monkeys. Get the book now. It's by Michael Taylor. He's the publisher and one of the contributors. Northern Monkeys, dressing and messing at the match, and more as told by the lads who were there. Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate your time, Michael.